I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world. When they see me coming, most people turn around and start to running because they find it strange. I speak another language because I was adopted by the God of change. The old man into a new creature. Don't mess with men in black because they try to heat you with this thing called temptation. Have you go into a world called damnation? And on this earth there's a lot of us. I am not alone. Bunch of ETs waiting on the phone home. And when the call's answered, we gone in the rapture. Warp speed faster than the Enterprise can catch us. Don't call no Will Smith. He cannot save the day. Jesus set me free. Independence Day. And if you want to know which world I come from, it's not on the map, but it's near the sun. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien.
I'm a foreigner, a visitor, a stranger to this earth. I made my journey here by the way of second birth. Not through the womb, but by His Spirit and His grace. Transform me from within because I'm from another place. Metamorphosis, mutations, He made modifications. He changed me from within and created alterations. Emerged and reborn my human form as an illusions. The only thing close to proof of evolution. This body will decay, I'm a temporary resident. My soul is eternal, separated from the elements. I've mutated, I'm a stranger, I'm a new man. A traveler and a tourist to this crazy land. You cross a path with some creatures from another place. And if you ask us how we got here, we will say by grace. We're not the type you think that fly around in spaceships. We follow Christ and unlike them we really exist.
I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien.
Hello guys, I'm so excited that there's already 12 people here because that has not been the case with the notifications. So what I did is I just took it upon myself to do a little bit extra work and to share, and that could be why, that might not be why there's more people here. Maybe the notifications are actually going out, not totally sure, but I'm grateful. The reason I want to talk about the subject of the third strand again is because it's been a little while since I have done a video on it. Actually, it has been probably a few months. And I talk about it here and there because it's just become something I've come to know so well in my own understanding and research. But it's probably not something you guys think about that often. And I just want to remind you with maybe a couple clips from other videos from other people that talk about this, because this coronavirus is nothing new. I shouldn't say it because that's where all my demonetization is coming from lately. But I've never been very good at censoring myself on some of these things. Glad you made it, Josh. But this has been around for so long, and it's been planned as part of how are we going to react and what are we going to do, and then they're going to decide basically where to go from there as far as what to offer us, whether it's like a vaccine this time that's going to be the thing. But they're waiting for us to demand the vaccine. What I'm really seeing more and more is people not wanting this and more people talking out about it. But I'm not sure what we're going to find in the near future. If you're seeing the way that things are getting shut down, if you're seeing the way that people are doing, or even our schools, there's not even one case in Idaho, and they're shutting down travel for people unless totally necessary. And yeah, animal and human DNA, when we shouldn't mix, in a lot of ways we shouldn't mix. But the hocus pocus part is the joke. I shouldn't say joke. The joke's kind of on us, because as everything gets shut down and the panic starts to set in, some people are kind of forced to shut things down, and some people are doing it because they're not really thinking this through. I even sent an email to thanks, Greg. I sent an email to the principal at our school, because he said, we may have to shut things down. We're just preparing for the worst. And I emailed, if you shut things down and we get pulled out of school, we have to leave school, we're not coming back to that school. So he says, oh, can't please everybody. That was his response, can't please everybody. So, I will mention, because you guys need to know that this is part of how I do life, and it is part of my ministry, Gold and Silver, but it's also part of how I get paid. But this raffle is not my own raffle. That's why you see my name on it, because this is a raffle I'm doing for somebody else. It's a hosted raffle, and there's only 4 spots left. It's the Sinbad. 4 spots are $10 a piece, and I want to throw that out there. If we could get it closed up, and I could draw for it even tonight, if I remember to make sure and do that, because I closed one last night and I forgot to draw, or yesterday I forgot to draw for it in the moment, but not a big deal. So only 4 spots left, $10 a spot for a coin that could be valued for up to, who knows, thousands of dollars in the next 10 years. We're not even sure. I'm going to talk about that. I don't think we're going to have a forced vaccination, because if it is forced, it won't be the mark. And I can even, I'm going to just show you guys some stuff here. So if you recall, if you've followed me for very long, or even if you haven't, I did a video called The AI That Fell from the Sky. This was from March a year ago. March 1st I put this out. So this is now a year old. And I didn't know a lot, but I was learning a lot. And I had read this book by Michael Crichton many years ago. And I know that there's a Dean Koontz book that has some similar kind of deal going on with the COVID, or the Wuhan virus. So this has all been known. It's all been known that we're going to go through something like this for a long time. So this is nothing new. The coronavirus is nothing new. That is something that has been, sorry, I hit my mic probably, but that is something that has been around for a very long time. So none of this is new, and we need to remember that. I'm sure you guys kind of know this. I'm not trying to, I know a lot of people know this, but there might be some stuff you didn't know. So I'm going to kind of talk about how in the book Pray, they created a, please don't play the piano. Don't. Please. Thank you. In the book, the storyline was that there was created a swarm of nanobots, and the nanobots would take over the persons and be that person, take over would immediately alter their morality, basically, their ability to have any feelings, and it controlled them. And people were noticing that people were acting a little differently. Well, it seems a little different. And it got out of control, of course. It was consuming people, and they had to come up with a way to fix it. And as a physician, I'm sure, being ahead of his time, he knew that nanobots were going to be a thing. And I had even some articles and stuff. I won't be able to play my own video because you can go back and watch it, but I have a whole playlist called Black Gold, Black Goo videos, and you can find that playlist for the videos I think are pertinent, especially pertinent. There might be more, but I think these ones are especially pertinent. I've got the one called Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Saturn Rising, Vampires and Werewolves. That was a 2-part series, Quantum Computers, and then the ultimate finalization of the Black Gold one they did recently. So this was an article back in 2001 talking about artificial mechanical phagocytes using to digest and discharge protocol. What does that mean? It was nanobots back in 2001. And I went on to talk about chemicals being sprayed in the sky. I talked about Morgellons. I brought up this guy. What was his name? I can't remember. You guys probably remember him. What is it? It's like a Kautz Vela, I think his name is. Kautz Vela. Kautzvella. And he talks about Morgellons extensively. Now, where I differ, yeah, I know Destiny Lab just went live. I was trying to get him to come live with me tonight, obviously couldn't. Where I differ from Kautz Vela is that I don't think that this stuff comes from outer space, and he does. He also talks about it being a why can't I think? My brain is like gone. Instead of being bacteria, fungal. It's fungal. And I think there's something to that because it grows worse. Morgellons will grow worse with antibiotics. And again, these diseases are worse when you are immune compromised. And so there's something to it. It grows, Morgellons actually grows into these little fibers that can be seen on a microscope. They can be seen in the skin. And they can grow in such a way that it irritates people's skin. It irritates their mindset. They have a lot of depression and frustration because doctors don't want to listen to them, what's wrong with them. If you already know all this stuff, I'm not trying to bore you. So I appreciate you hanging out and listening. And I went on to talk more about what Morgellons looks like in people and the nanobots and how they are going to work. And then I kind of discovered a company called Black Carbon that seemed to be making what I think is nanobots type of stuff. Now it turns out they have a sister company called McKinsey & Company, and I had no idea what that meant, if anything, at the time that I had made this video. And I even talked about it. I said, this is kind of weird. You don't really know what they're about. They don't tell you what they're selling. And it looks like they're selling like swarm technology. And a lot of swarm technology is hive mind technology. If you're not keeping up with what I'm saying, what they want is to be able to control you. I'm going to get to it. We're going to get to it, okay? I promise. So I think they're selling like a swarm hive mind technology. And I showed this whole commercial because it was odd. And then, of course, they've got the hexagram. They don't say at all what they're about. And then I went on to talk about McKinsey & Company. I don't do Q drops, and I don't study Q or research Q. But this is the one time I should add that to this. This is the one time I did. Because McKinsey & Company is mentioned in Q drop 350 and I think 354, but it's just a redrop. It talked about the Federal Reserve and some of the players, and I could not get a lot of information, but Susan Rice was one of them. And Susan Rice does work for McKinsey Institute. She's definitely Boule, which is the black secret society, free Prince Hall Mason type of thing that kind of controls their community. And her husband's a white Canadian. I never really could dig up much information on him. And then it talked about one of the presidents of the Federal Reserve. But mostly I really looked into McKinsey & Company, and what I decided was McKinsey & Company is getting its fingers into everything technological wise. And so to me, I think that it's Quantum Black is the name of the company. Carbon Black's a different one that does internet protection services. But Quantum Black, I believe, is the quantum computer. And I did a video on quantum computers, which is very relevant because this is them trying to reach into other dimensions and bring things through. And I know a lot of you guys know that part of it. So the D-Wave and any other quantum computer that they're trying to make portals or stargates. And what I learned recently that I haven't researched yet is it takes a certain airwave frequency to open a stargate, a certain sound frequency, airwave frequency to open a stargate, which will fall into exactly what we're talking about with how they're going to do this third strand DNA. So I'm going to get to that. I hope it's not buffering too much for you guys. It looks like it must be because people are leaving, but I apologize. If it's really bad, then hopefully you can come back and watch later and it won't be too bad. Hopefully just refresh if it buffers and just come back. Don't leave. But if it's really bad, I can understand. You come back later. Okay. So I did do a lot of stuff on D-Wave, Gordy Rose. I did put up his speech here. Even the part where he talks about when he worked for Kindred or owned Kindred, I can't remember which. And he said he was looking for demonologists. So I talked a lot about the hive mind too in this one. And I mentioned that's what they want. I couldn't find the video of the speech, but the guy was giving a speech and he was saying, this is what we want. We want one hive mind. We want people to be here all thinking the same thing at the same time. And of course it made me think of the honeybee versus the killer bee. And if you're not familiar, the killer bee was created as a hybrid, and it was supposed to create more honey. It was supposed to produce, better. It was supposed to maintain. They were supposed to be a little bit more controlled and maintain and produce more honey. And if you're not surprised, what happened was the opposite. The killer bee did not produce more. In fact, it produced less. And thanks, James. In fact, the killer bee produced less honey, and it was destructive to the honeybee, and absolutely annihilated a lot of honeybee races and ate them, destroyed them and ate them, and took over their hives, only to not produce any honey. So it just goes to show, when man puts his hand into the mixing jar to create his own God-made stuff, it turns into what's called, like I call it, the hijacking of the Lord's creation, and it becomes a killer bee. It becomes just a total chaotic mess. Now, do they know this? Maybe that's how they want it, but I went on and on and talked about that. And I did talk about Nephilim. I talked about this guy from Google who wanted to create his own AI church, and where it was all going with bringing back these creatures, probably to mate with women again. Now, I have a friend who says that as in the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. And well, we know the Bible says that, but it's not there yet, you guys. We don't have Nephilim. I don't believe we have a Nephilim race breeding the way they were back in that time. I'm not saying they would be giants, but why wouldn't they? Because the men of renown and the heroes of old were like the Greek gods and the Egyptian gods. They were monsters. They were giants. And people were terrified of them. They were carnivorous. They were sodomites in public, and they were raping women to death in public. And it was so known that we have different stories from all different parts of the world, including South America, North America, the Mesopotamian, and even Asian stories. They're all over the world already of these giants. And just because some countries are going through some hard times and they might be having a tribulation of sorts as Christians, that actually doesn't mean that we're in the tribulation at all, because we're not being persecuted as Christians in the United States. Not really. Not like it's supposed to be. So I really don't think we're even there yet. I don't think that the end is near. I think that it's been end times for 2,000 years, and it's going to continue to be end times for quite a while. We're just not there yet. It's not bad enough, and there's more souls to be saved. That's important to remember. We're not just here to hang out until we die. There's more souls to be saved, and that's part of our job as Christians. So where do we go from here? I'm going to show you a video by Anthony Patch, and I got this video from Nicholson 1968. Absolutely think he's wonderful. I support him 100%. I'll share the link in the chat here, and I think he's totally worth watching, but I dug into his videos big time. But I really want you to listen to what Anthony Patch says in this part right here.
Well, we've all heard of the bird flu, and we've heard of tuberculosis, and we've heard of flesh-eating diseases, and there's a number of things that have been going around in the media the last few years, including AIDS, which is still there, and now we have even strange as it sounds, we have a rise to almost an epidemic level now of rabies, which we typically associate with animals. But when it crosses to the human barrier, to the barrier between animal and human, crosses that barrier into the human, there is no treatment. There is no cure for rabies. Now, you may not have heard this. This is not necessarily new, but it's coming to the forefront. In the
You know what this makes me think of?
What's that?
This zombie apocalypse.
Absolutely. And that is the context in which the mainstream media right now is placing it, is in the zombie apocalypse. Because that's exactly how people present themselves.
Oh, you didn't hear me. Hold on. Sorry, I forgot I was muted. This
Vaccines are being...
This interview was around, I don't know, 2014, I think 2014, maybe earlier. So that's what I was trying to say, and then now I've clicked around all over the place. So let me just shut up.
Rabies, which we typically associate with animals. But when it crosses to the human barrier, to the barrier between animal and human, crosses that barrier into the human, there is no treatment. There is no cure for rabies. Now, you may not have heard this. This is not necessarily new, but it's coming to the forefront. In the
You know
mass
what this
media
makes me
now.
think of?
What's that?
This zombie apocalypse.
Absolutely. And that is the context in which the mainstream media right now is placing it, is in the zombie apocalypse. Because that's exactly how people present themselves, if you will. I'm speaking medically, but that's how they appear and how they behave is like a zombie because of the effects of rabies on the nervous system. There were last year and even earlier this year, there were actually drills conducted by our government on the zombie apocalypse and how would, first responders, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, how would they deal with these people? So it sounds far-fetched to the average person who hasn't heard this before, but this is nothing new. But let's go beyond the rabies. Let's talk about people getting a flu shot or getting a avian flu inoculation. There's another very insidious disease, if you will, which is really a man-made disease. It's a biological construct called MERS coronavirus out of the Middle East. It's the Middle East respiratory syndrome. It's made its way into Europe to a certain extent, and eventually, because of air travel, it will reach around the world. It's another example of where inoculations or vaccines are being derived, or they're trying to derive for. That, again, I always like to go all the way to the end. What's the purpose? What's the goal? If you have a man-made or engineered virus, why was it created? Is it simply just to kill people? Well, that's one part of it, but if you go further and you go deeper than that, it is to get people to demand a vaccine, a shot, if you will, or a pill. Why would, if you're in a position of control, of power, of ultimate power, why would you want people to demand a vaccine? Well, it's because something's in the vaccine that you want people to then have as a part of their body. Well, what is in the vaccine that you want everybody to have inside their body? It is a DNA manipulator or modifier. I mentioned earlier third strand DNA. There is already, and you can find this on the internet, in existence, a third strand of DNA constructed of silicon. Again, we go back to the silicon chip in computers. The third strand is made of silicon and is also coated in gold. If you talk about nanotechnology and nano layers, this is extremely thin coating of gold down to 1/1000th of a millimeter of gold that is coating the silicon from which you are building a third strand of DNA. The purpose of the gold is to increase the surface area around this strand so that more information can be digitally imparted or programmed. You're essentially, what you're doing is you're creating a third strand of DNA. You are transferring that or imparting it into a person's body through a vaccine that that person's demanding because they're afraid of contracting MERS coronavirus or avian flu or whatever it may be. And so the government, if you will, or the powers that be sit back and they kind of chuckle and they say, well, we couldn't have forced people to take this vaccine or to take this hidden third strand of DNA. They would rebel against it. But if we create the problem and present the solution, people will demand the solution. Thus we achieve our ultimate goal of having this DNA in every person changed. Well, let's go deeper. What's the goal? What's the purpose? Yeah, you go around and change everybody's DNA. What do they become? They become a hybrid. The insidious part of this is that once a person is injected, almost immediately their DNA undergoes transformation. almost immediately they lose all awareness of the fact that they've lost their independence, their ability to think on their own, to make decisions on their own, and to affect them on a moral level. Their moral independence, their beliefs, religious, moral, ethical, legal, all of those go away. If you remove the independent thought and that awareness that you've lost your independence is gone, what then do the powers that be do with these new forms of humans, hybrids? They can control them. They can turn them into a serf class. Not S-U-R-F, not surfers, but S-E-R-F, a class of slaves to serve the elite, to serve the Ray Kurzweils of the world who want to achieve immortality, but they need to have labor to manufacture, develop all of the technologies. And they have enough technologies now. The technology, the scientific world, if you will, has reached the level where they don't care about hiding it anymore. Their agenda is so far advanced, both politically, philosophically, their sense of morals, and technologically, that no longer are they worried about you and me as the serf class and the coming serf class. They're not worried about what we think. They're not worried about us rebelling. And in fact, we won't rebel, partly because right now we've been so dumbed down through a variety of mechanisms. But once people demand the virus and they truly are dumbed down to where they've lost that awareness that something's happened to me, now they can do what they want with us. They are achieving what I call the hive mentality, like a beehive. Worker bees, soldier bees, serving the queen. The queen, in my estimation, is this elite class that's in power, and it's not the politicians. Forget the politicians. This has nothing to do with Republicans, Democrats, Tea Party, libertarians. It has nothing to do with political structure or classes. It has to do with the small group that is in control and has been in control since ancient times.
That's all I'm going to show. You can watch his whole video that I sent the link for. I'll send it again. That's Nicholson, 1968. He has a lot of in-depth stuff to learn from. So if you prefer, I've kind of made a lot of the videos based on that stuff anyway. So I'm going to go through mine again, and I'm going to mention that I did this vampire, werewolves, and aliens videos because I wanted to talk about what I think is going on with vampires, werewolves, and aliens, right? I think it's related. I think it's definitely related with the deception. And then I created this Saturn Rising one, and this one was kind of more to the Saturn side of it, the cube side of it, what they believe, and that kind of elite. The reason I'm talking about these particular videos that I made, they come off of research of other people. You can watch the other people. I give credit to other people, Nicholson, 1968, Face Like the Sun, and more, right? And a lot of just research I've done on my own, but they've got good videos too. It's actually kind of mind-blowing how it all starts to connect, but I have such bad internet right now. So I started out talking about the cube. I started talking about the black goo, which is the possibly the fungal thing that Couts Vela would talk about. I talked about the importance of Saturn for these people, Thoth being like the symbol of the black cube and Satan. And I'm reading a great book on so much of it now that it's really laying it all out for me in a way that I could totally comprehend, which I really, really like. Because at a time where I wouldn't have comprehended this stuff at all, the way I'm looking at it, there's people that think that we're being hologrammed from Saturn. I don't think that's the case at all. but it all goes back to Pan, the goat god, and Capricorn and the Saturn worship. I get into the Hermetics, but specifically there's the Brotherhood of Saturn, and they're very deeply dark and evil. And a lot of people haven't heard of them, but I want you guys to realize that one of those people is Arthur C. Clarke, and he writes the books like 2001, The Space Odyssey, 2010, and 3001. Oh, Brenda, you're only, 25 minutes late. That's all you are. And this is one of the deepest, darkest groups of people. I go through talking about them. I get into Enoch, and I definitely get into the New Age part of this. The Cloudbuster guy, I can't think of his name right now, doesn't matter, but he started the whole Oregon thing that people thought, when they thought Serial Brain 2 said that Trump was spraying the good chemicals. I mean, no. Oregon was created by a total globalist, every Satanist, Luciferian. And so this video gets into Revelation or Scripture, and then it starts to talk about where we've seen black goo and the order of the Hermetic alchemy. And so I get into the black, white, red, and gold of it. And it was the gold that really started to catch. Remember how Anthony Patch said they're going to lay it down with gold? And we talked about silicone because silicone is the fastest we know in the computers right now. It's the fastest we can transmit information through chips and computer technology and wiring and all that stuff. And silver, we know, has a higher conductivity, so they're using silver and gold. So bear with my mind here for a minute. So then I get into some of the celebrity stuff about the black gold, that they're showing the Hermetic alchemy side of it. The black being while they're asleep. The white is kind of waking up and being enlightened. The red is the acceptance. That's why you'll see a lot of black, white, and red clothing. You'll see the sex kitten animal print on the girls, sometimes the boys. But the black, white, and red clothing is indicative of their ascension, that they believe that they're going to have. Gold being the final, they're there. So it's black, you're asleep. White, you're waking up. You're enlightened. Red is acceptance, and gold means you've made it, buddy. And that's also why they have the ladders. That's why they have the escalators. And you're going to see them so much black, red, and white. So much. I mean, it's easy to put images together and say these are the three colors that people just generally like, but it's actually super with celebrities. They're always wearing these two of the three colors, if it's not just duality of the black and white, which we know is the Luciferian idea. If you're not familiar, the Luciferian idea is that God and Lucifer should come together as one being. This is all part of the same thing. You can see it in the dark crystal with the Skeksis and the other ones. And so you've got these two beings that apart are yin and yang, right? But they were at one point connected, which is why the yin and the yang looks the way that it does, with the black and the white and the little dot in each one of them. And that to ascend finally fully, that the demiurge, which is God, who imprisons us on earth, and Lucifer, who's going to bring us the knowledge that's secret until he brings it to us, they're going to come together, and it's going to be this ascension power of coming together. While they're trying to have you ascend in this body now on earth and get you through these stages, it's definitely going to be including this transhumanism. And it brings me to Revelation, is it 9:6, where they said, and there will be those that wish for death, that death will flee from them, because they're probably going to be totally living forever and uploaded to a computer or something, and they cannot die. There's no body to die. Let's see, I knew that was from Serial Brain 2. The Queen of the Dam was referenced as well. Who knows? I don't do Serial Brain 2. And I have good reason. I'm very concerned with some of the things that he has said and tried to talk about, and then I just realized we don't need gematria to figure out what's going on, because that's just another secret. I've got the secret knowledge. I've got the gematria to tell you about it. Just get away from it. Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life, and if we don't come to Jesus first, we're never going to understand any of this, gematria or not. I mean, how many people do you think watch that even understand gematria? Just forget about it. So black, white, and red are the walking dead, though they were woke but found out that they are just a sick joke. It's true, because there's probably a lot of, cloning going on, trying to put an old spirit back in a new body. I think it's the spirits that's inhabiting, it's the spirits that are trying to take over the new body, and it's just the person. They don't care about the human flesh. They've got it, but because we don't have this eternal life yet, they're going to put the old spirit back into the new body, into the new clone. And who knows how many they're growing at a time. When I say growing, they're literally growing. I'm not saying they're growing them in the ground or in a pod. And I don't know that I believe that there'll be a baby into an adult all of a sudden. And but they're certainly showing us this. And why all the black goo? Why all the black goo? Well, I think it speaks to the third strand DNA. We don't know if they went up into space and retrieved something, and it's this stuff out of control. Space, I say loosely, space, but they're pointing to the programmable matter, and that's what the black goo is. It's programmable matter that's going to come into our bodies and be able to program us. They've already tried it with food. They've already tried it with, like I showed you with the AI that fell from the sky. They've tried it by spraying it. They've tried it with food. The reason it's not working that well is because